Yeah, what's happening? We back again. You Can't Play Boxing Podcast, episode 57. Yeah, man, this is going to be a great episode. Before we get into everything, though, I want to get some of the house cleaning out the way. So number one, check us out on our Instagram. That's at You Can't Play Boxing. Check us out on our website. That's can'tplayboxing.com. Check us out on YouTube, which is You Can't Play Boxing. Check us out on Twitter, You Can't Play Boxing. Yeah, so check us out on all the platforms. And of course, if you're listening, you probably listening on your Apple. You probably listen on your Apple Podcasts, your Google Podcasts, your Spotify, your Stitcher, your wherever you listen to, you know what I'm saying? So I appreciate everybody listening. Spend great time in boxing. So we're going to hop right into the podcast. There's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, of course, it's been a month since we had the last podcast. So we're going to talk about Shakur Stevenson, you know what I'm saying? He had a fight in the last, 2 weeks. Got Gerard Boots Ennis, you know what I'm saying? Had a great showing. We're going to talk about, of course, the fight last weekend, which was Canelo versus Plant. And, of course, we're going to get into our top 10 pound-for-pound fighters out there right now. So before we get into all that, man, did y'all see Jarrett Hurd slapping? Was it Jamal or Jamel Charlo? The 154 Jamel. No, it said Charlo. The loud talking Charlo. You know what I'm saying? The one who always be looking like I ain't going to get into that. The loud talking Charlo. You know what I mean? So they was at the Caleb Plant versus Canelo fight at the MGM Grand. And it looks like they just got into like a little altercation as far as some words were said, you know, and Charlo, he said to Hurd tomorrow, you know, I'll kill you and your bitch, you know what I'm saying? And Hurd didn't take that too lightly, you know, so he stepped to his and defended his lady, which, you know, you're supposed to. And now the crazy thing about this is that the Charlo brother, his twin brother was right there in the middle of it and saw his brother get slapped. It was a slight slap, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing serious, but he saw his brother get slapped and he didn't really do nothing. But I think they got this situation where the 154 Charlo, he just like the loud talker, and he's like the one that's kind of like immature. And the one at 160, I think that's Mel, Jamel. He's more mature, even though they're like a minute apart or whatever. So if you don't know, Jarrett Hurd, he lost the last couple fights. He lost his fight to who was that, Arias or whatever, on that Jake Paul, Floyd Mayweather undercard. But him and Charlo, they've been get into it for like the last years, because they were supposed to fight a couple times. But you know, they got into it, and you know, Hurd said, "Do you hear me?" You feel me? So that's interesting. I mean, I respect all fighters, but the 154-pound Charlo, man, he just seems like he be on some other shit. You know what I'm saying? He seemed like he be on some shit where he be doing a lot of talking, a lot of eyes bucking, a lot of over-the-top situations, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times it don't seem like a call for that. You know, then he can be calling like some of the people in the boxing community broke, some of like the fans. I mean, he be doing a lot of over-the-top stuff. You know what I mean? I respect him as a boxer. I think he's one of the best 154-pounders out there for sure. But he just be on some other stuff, you know? It's like, it's something, he always doing some other stuff. And I mean, on a personal level, I don't know them, but just from the outside looking in, I'm more like what the 160-pound Charlo does versus the 154 Charlo. You know what I'm saying? He seems to take it a little bit more serious. Whatever. So that was that news. Also in boxing news, we got Virgil Ortiz with a new trainer. Yeah. So Virgil Ortiz, 18-0, 18 KOs. The rising Mexican welterweight coming out of the Dallas, Texas area. Virgil Ortiz, he's switching trainers. He's not going to be trained by Robert Garcia anymore out of the Garcia gym. He's going with a new trainer. The word is he's going to switch to Canelo's trainer, Eddie Reynoso. And Eddie he got, of course, Canelo. He got Ryan Garcia. He got what's the guy, the Cuban guy, just fought on Wilder's undercard, Wilder and Fury undercard. Frank Sanchez, he got him, heavyweight. He got, of course, Andy Ruiz, heavyweight. So they got a killer stable out there. They got Oscar Valdez, who just got popped, on some steroid stuff. So they got a big stable out there. So it looks like Virgil Ortiz, who's one of the up-and-coming guys in welterweight, it looks like he's going to switch trainers. And it looks like he's going to go with Eddie Reynoso, which is a good stable out there. I think with the power that Virgil Ortiz has and the ferociousness, I think Eddie can show him a little bit more of how to box with it. Because as he goes up the ladder, he's going to have to learn how to box a little bit more if he wants to go to the next level. Because, looking at the people that's above him on that ladder, you got Boots Ennis, who I'm going to talk about in a second. We got, of course, Keith Thurman. We got, of course, Sean Porter. We got, of course, Terence Crawford. We got, of course, Errol Spence. And Virgil Ortiz he's the number one contender in the WBC, which he may be the mandatory for Errol Spence coming up in the next year. So unless Errol Spence vacates the belt. So he's going to need to learn a little bit more the nuance of the fighting game. I think he's definitely one of the young guns, but I definitely can see how a different trainer may be the best thing for him, So shout out to Virgil Ortiz. Good luck to the new trainer in your situation over there. Speaking of welterweights, I was going to go another direction, but hey, it's the logical situation is what we're going to talk about next. Jerron Boots Ennis hailing out of Philadelphia, 29-0, is he? 29, 28-0, 26 KOs. He fought last week. He fought Thomas Delorme. And Boots, if you don't know Boots is out of Philadelphia, the Ennis family, big in boxing. Dad fought, brother fights, so it's a family that's very respected in Philly. Boots is very fluid, one of the top welterweights up and coming. I think Boots is 24 years old. Looks phenomenal. There's no other way to say it. It looks phenomenal. Thomas Delorme, of course, he lost the last 4 out of 5, but he never been stopped the way that Boots stopped him. Boots stopped him in the first round, and he stopped him with 2 different stances in one round. You know what I'm saying? He stopped him being an orthodox fighter one time, and then he stopped him being a southpaw. So, that tells you the level of skill that he has to stop a veteran fighter who was at one point a top 10 contender in welterweight, to stop him southpaw and orthodox in the same round, first round. Boots is phenomenal, you know what I'm saying? So, don't know who he's going to fight next. I know I heard an interview Cameron Duncan had on Barbershop Conversations. Shout out to Fred for his interview that he had with Cameron Duncan. Cameron Duncan is the promoter of Boots Ennis. And Cameron was talking about they're going to try to find a fight that makes the most sense. I would love to see Boots fight Keith Thurman. I think that's a logical step up. And, the only situation is that, it has to be enough money for Keith Thurman, because I don't think Thurman is, as you kind of can see, we're 2 months from 2022. Thurman hadn't fought since July 2019, which is 2.5 years ago. And he doesn't seem to be in a rush to fight. Matter of fact, I was at that fight when he fought Pacquiao back in July 2019. So it's been 2.5 years. And, that would be a good step up in competition for Boots. And if the money's right, I think Thurman would be with it, but I don't think he's fighting it unless you bring out the bag. And the only thing about Boots having a small promoter, usually it's hard for them to break out that big bag unless there's like some additional resources that they're going to get. So, but shout out to Boots. I think he's the truth. And the thing about it, bro, Boots is number 3 on the WBC, or number 3 on the IBF, one of the two, and he is and Sean Porter's number 2. So no matter what happens in a week or two when Sean Porter fights Terence Crawford, if he wins, he becomes the WBO champion, and he can't be the number 2 contender for the IBF at that point anyway. And if he loses, you would think he's going to drop down below number 2 at that point also. So it's a good possibility Boots is going to be the number 2 contender pretty soon. And I think he's about 2 to 3 fights away at most from getting that title, the title shot, whether it's by a vacant belt or by a mandatory. So I'm been telling people, I understand we want to see the big fights. I understand we want to see all of that. However, I think Boots is probably a year away at earliest from a title shot, but more than likely we're looking at probably sometime in 2023. And he's only 24 years old, so he has time. And I think, I'll say this though, if you Errol Spence or if you Terence Crawford, man, y'all let this kid get to 25, 26 years old, 27 years old, it's going to be hard to beat him. It's probably hard to beat him right now, but it's not going to get easier as he gets older and gets more experience. It's going to be a hard situation. So I'm very excited about the welterweight division. Lots of good fights, lots of things going on. And speaking of fighters that I'm excited about, also happened last month. We had Shakur Stevenson, 130-pound titleist, hailing out of Newark, New Jersey. He put on a masterful performance against Jamel Herring. And Jamel Herring, solid fighter, solid champion. He's not going to make too many mistakes, but it wasn't about making mistakes. It was about what can you bring. And Shakur pulled out a lot of tools. Looks like he's definitely maturing in his body. You know what I'm saying? Getting bigger. 24 years old. That was one of the coming out parties to me, to Shakur. The way that he looked on 2 weeks ago, he's coming. He's coming. He's at 130 right now. Of course, he wants to fight Oscar Valdez, but I think Bob Arum wants to have Oscar Valdez fight Navarrete, and I think he's looking to have Shakur fight somebody else. But Shakur looks like the talent I saw 2 weeks ago. He looks like the ruler of 130, and for everybody at 135, he's coming. You know what I mean? So it makes me very excited to see Shakur. Then you got Devin Haney coming at 135. You got Tank at 135. Now that's another story. Tank, I don't know, man. I think Tank is very talented, as you'll probably see in a few minutes at the end of the episode on my top 10 pound for pound. However, I think the Mayweather Promotions is unnecessarily protecting him. Because don't get me wrong, I know he's the number one cash cow for Mayweather Promotions. However, you can do a fight where Tank has an easier fight, a mandatory or whatever, like the guy he's going to probably fight, well, the guy he is fighting in December, Oscar Cruz. He can have a fight like that, but then you can do one easy fight, and then you could do, not easy fight, you can do one, because no fight is easy, you know what I mean, once you reach a certain level. But you can do one mandatory type level fight, and then you can do one big situation every year with Tank. You know what I'm saying? So he can fight Isaac Cruz, and then he can fight somebody like, you know what I mean, like a Teofimo, or he can fight somebody like a Devin Haney, or he can fight somebody like of course he can fight Ryan Garcia. I mean, something like that as a big event and a smaller event. You can do that. He's that talented, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to protect him. I know he's the cash cow, but you gotta drop your nuts a little bit as a promoter and say, hey, we're gonna put him in there and we're gonna have him do his thing because we believe in him. We know what he is. And if he loses, I don't think Tank, I mean, hey, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, but Tank is good enough to drop his nuts and get in there and fight. He doesn't need protection, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully that'll get out, you know, and hopefully he'll start fighting the competition at least once a year that's on his level. Because right now, Isaac Cruz won't be on this level. I mean, no disrespect to Isaac Cruz. He can, anything can happen in boxing. But if you're talking about talent versus talent, Isaac Cruz is not on Tank level at all. He ain't on his level. So hopefully we'll get a fight like that. And then, like I said, I was getting back to people who can fight. He can fight Ryan Garcia, stuff like that. So it's a lot of competition out there. I'm very excited about what's going on in boxing as far as the young talent we have. We just have to have some of these fights being made because these guys are mid-20s to late 20s right now. So all the babysitting and everything, that time is kind of over with. You can give them a major event and a minor event. I'm with that, but the babysitting should be over. That's over with. It's grown man food at this point. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a quick break, but once we come back from the break, we're gonna talk about Canelo versus Plant, and then we're gonna also talk about what's the top 10 pound for pound fighters we have right now. Shouts out to our sponsors. Luxury Apex is sponsoring this segment. LuxuryApex.com is where you can find the most premium colognes and fragrances for women and perfumes for women for great prices. Luxury Apex has premium colognes and perfumes from Chanel, from Tom Ford, also from Dior. And just for you listening to our podcast, You Can't Play Boxing, they got a special promo code for our listeners. If you type in the code Can't Play Boxing 25, you get 25% off from any item on the site. Luxury Apex includes free shipping, so give them a shout, man. LuxuryApex.com. Premium fragrances, top-notch designers. Let them know that You Can't Play Boxing sent you over there. Again, promo code is Can't Play Boxing 25. What's up? It's that time of the show where we kind of give a shout out to our sponsors. The sponsor today is Anchor. Anchor is everything you need to create your own podcast. You can use Anchor to distribute your show. They'll kind of get it out for you. And all you have to do is do it from your cell phone or your microphone, however you want to do it. But if you want to get your voice out there, if you want to talk to the people, there's no better place to do it than Anchor. So download the app Anchor or go to their website, anchor.com. It'll distribute your podcast on all platforms. So again, Anchor. Yeah, what's happening? You Can't Play Boxing podcast back for the final segment of the show. Appreciate everybody listening to the advertisements and all that. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to get into this last segment. We're going to dive into this Canelo versus Caleb Plant. So number one, I broke this fight down into 3 segments, and the money, the power, and the respect. So on the money side of things, Canelo, of course, is the big dog. He estimated was going to get $40 million from this fight. Big dog status. Caleb Plant is going to get his career high payday, which was $10 million. So they both got compensated very well, for this fight. And of course, Canelo's been one of the top grossing athletes, period, in the last 5 years. And this fight was no different. When it comes to the power, and this is one of the things I kind of talked about when I was telling some of my friends and my comrades, how I felt about the fight. I felt like the power was going to be the biggest factor in the fight, and the lack of power, So what I mean by that is like Caleb Plant, great fighter. I didn't doubt that. And then from what I saw, he had a good chin. And I think even after this fight, even though he got knocked out, it's kind of crazy for me saying that, he got a great chin. He got a better chin than I thought he had. You know what I'm saying? Because Canelo hit him with a couple shots. There was one shot like either at the end of round 9 or in round 10. It was a body shot. And the shit on TV sound like a shotgun was done, had let off. And Caleb Plant, he took that, and I was like, damn, he took that? Because that was a body shot that most boxers that I've seen would have folded. Caleb Plant took it, but I noticed when he was going to the corner though, that shot kind of bothered him, but he still came out. He was moving. So I think that body shot right there was one of the ones that kind of was like, it kind of broke through a little bit. It was like a delayed reaction because like a round or two later, Canelo, did his KO. But what I was getting to was that the lack of power that Caleb Plant had, even though he got the footwork, even though he got the jab, even though defensively, he was pretty on point, Like he was really there. However, he just didn't have the power to keep Canelo off of you. And if you on your back foot the entire time, and with Canelo, I always tell people, like I was telling people, I said, man, Caleb Plant is good, but with Canelo, you need some of that goddamn it, get up off me type power. You know what I'm saying? You need that power where I let this go, you gonna step back, he ain't coming forward for a second. You know what I mean? He might still come forward, but he gonna give me a little breathing room, like get up off me. Caleb Plant didn't have the type of power, He got like a, he got some guns, but he ain't got the guns to get through Canelo's armor and have him retreat. And if you fighting Canelo off of your back foot with the amount of pressure and head movement that he gives and body work that he does, it's eventually, and he's accurate. He's hella accurate. Canelo typically averages about 47% accuracy. That's very, very high. If you're in the 40% range, you great. And if you're in a high 40% range, usually about to stop a motherfucker. And Canelo stopped a lot of motherfuckers. Because you basically, for every 2 shots you throw, you landing one or two, you landing one of those, So that's why, it's a very hard situation to beat Canelo. But the lack of power, I don't think anybody with a lack of power is going to be, you got to have the perfect recipe. And if you have a lack of power that he respects, for 12 rounds, it's kind of hard for you to beat him. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of, you know, I give Caleb Plant I give him a lot of credit, you know. However, it just was hard for me to pick him with the tools that he has going against the tools that Canelo has, you know. And then respect, you know what I mean? With the respect, it's twofold. Number one, I want to give a lot of respect to Caleb Plant. I picked him to lose round 10. However, he lasted round 11. And actually, he took a lot of those shots a lot better than I thought he would. He really didn't. It really wasn't a systematic breakdown like I thought it was going to be. He broke down, but it kind of just happened all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he held up a lot. So I give Caleb Plant hella respect. He fought. He used his tools that he had to the best of his ability, and I know that him fighting that sort of fight against most 168 pounders, he wins definitely 90% of the time. It's just that, you know, you fighting Canelo, he's a Hall of Famer, all-time great. What you got just not going to match up to what you need to be him. But that's not to say he's a bad fighter at all. He's not a bad fighter. He's a good fighter. A good fighter, very good fighter. You know what I mean? Like, he's up there. He's a deserved champion. He definitely is a deserved champion. He wasn't a paper champion. So respect goes to Caleb Plant. Respect extremely goes to Canelo, because, like I said, in order to beat Canelo, bro, it takes a crazy ingredient you got to have in your recipe. I feel like you got to have a chin, number one. And number two, you got to be able to have a little bit of footwork, be technically sound. Number three, you got to have that jab to keep him honest. But also number four, to keep him very honest, you got to have some of that power. You know what I mean? And if you have that power, the chin, the footwork, and the jab, and then a level of dog within you, you can make it to where it's a 50-50 fight. I still don't know if you beat him, but you definitely put yourself in the running. And, you know, I think there's only one fighter, in my estimation, out there who has that. I'm not saying there's not other fighters who can make the fight a good, but there's only one fighter who I would say is a 50-50 fight, or slightly, you know, it's a genuinely 50-50 fight if Canelo fights this guy. And we'll kind of go into that next. I mean, because what's next with Canelo? He won this fight. Of course, he's the undisputed 168-pound champion. There's only 6 people in history that have done this. Canelo was one of them. Definitely future Hall of Famer. If he's not the best Mexican boxer of all time, he's number 2. He's an all-time great. I mean, there's nothing more to say. He is that guy. He is as good as advertised. He's fought hella people, Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? He fought Floyd Mayweather, who's a Hall of Famer, lost that one. He fought Miguel Cotto, who's a Hall of Famer. He won that one. Fought Triple G twice, who's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He won one, and the other one, he was it was a draw. But, you know, and I agree with both of those decisions. I know it's been somewhat controversial, but yeah, I agree with all of that, though. But both of those, he fought a very good Danny Jacobs at the time. Fought a very good Erislandy Lara. Fought a very good Austin Trout at the time, because in their division at that time, they were definitely the top 5 guys in that situation. You know, so Canelo has nothing. Fought a Kovalev who was slightly over the hill, but he was still a top 5 light heavyweight. And Canelo was going up in weight, so and he was losing that fight on points. You know what I mean? So he is that dude. You know, he's that guy. In much respect to Canelo, I will say what's next. There's talk that Canelo said that he's going to take off some time because he fought 4 times in the last 11 months. He plans on taking off time and coming back in May. There's talk it could be David Benavidez, who he fights this weekend in Phoenix. It could be the 160-pound Charlo. It could be Dimitri Bivol at 175. it could be the only guy who I think has a 50-50 chance of beating Canelo, which is Artur Beterbiev, the 175-pound titleist. You know, he has that chin, he has the power, he has the not giving a fuck, he has the ability to be technically sound. He gets hit, but he absorbs it. So that would be the fight that I would love to see as a hardcore boxing person. And of course, the people are bringing up Triple G. That's probably the most commercially viable, but Triple G and Canelo, I think Triple G's lost a step. He's going to fight next month against Murata in Japan. But Triple G, I don't feel at this point, he's lost a step, and I think Canelo has gained a step or two. So if they fight again, I think we're going to have the same result as the second fight was, which is Canelo winning. I just think that's going to be more decisive, where he wins 116 and 112, 117 and 111. Triple G faces marked up more, you know what I mean? And it's not going to be a different outcome to me, you know what I mean? With Triple G's age and what we've seen the last few times, I don't think can beat Canelo, you know? So Canelo is the shit. There's no doubt about it. Fuck what you heard if you heard different. You know what I'm saying? But what we also going to talk about are other people that I believe is a shit as far as top 10 pound for pound fighters. And then what we're going to do after that, we'll wrap up this episode. So going into the top 10 pound for pound fighters, number 10, I got the guy with the crazy footwork, going in and out, fights at 130, 135 pounds too, has 2 losses, but talent-wise, he's undeniable. And I'm speaking about Vasily Lomachenko, you know what I'm saying? Lomachenko is my number 10 fighter. Number 9, coming out of Japan, is Inoue, you know what I'm saying? He's my number 9 fighter. Number 8 is somebody we talked about just a minute ago, I believe has a talent, just needs to be in a position to showcase that and not have his promoters protect him. And I believe that's Gervonta Tank Davis. He's my number 8 pound for pound fighter. Number 7, the guy I just talked about, who's the only fighter that I believe is a truly 50-50 fight with Canelo, or I would probably maybe slightly give him the advantage, which would be Artur Beterbiev, you know what I'm saying, coming out of Russia. Number 6 is the guy who beat Lomachenko just last year around this time, and he has an upcoming fight in 2 to 3 weeks. We're talking about Teofimo Lopez. This is my number 6 pound for pound fighter. Number 5, we got 3 belt champion right now, just beat Anthony Joshua 2 months ago. I'm talking about undisputed at cruiserweight. I'm talking about footwork like a light heavyweight, middleweight type fighter. I'm talking about undefeated heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk. Number 4, I'm going to go with, we're going to see him in about 12 days or less. We're talking about WBO welterweight champion, undefeated also, fighting our guy, Mr. Rumble and Tumble. He's fighting Sean Porter in 12 days. But we're talking about Terence Crawford is my number 4 pound for pound fighter. Number 3, haven't seen him in about almost 2 years. Has a few injuries. Only fought 1 time in the last 3 years. So he's getting close to where he's being almost penalized for not being in the ring a little bit. And depending on what Crawford does, I can possibly see him going to number 4 after this Crawford fight. But when he's in the ring, it's not deniable. He is a dog. He has the power. He has the jab. He has the size. He's undefeated also. Pretty good resume. He has beat Kell Brook. He's beat Sean Porter. He has beat Danny Garcia. I'm talking about undefeated Errol Spence. Number 2, I know people kind of is controversial because you don't put heavyweights this high usually in a pound-for-pound ranking. But when I see this dude use all of the tools that he used in his last fight and to come him off the ground 4 times against arguably one of the hardest punching fighters in heavyweight history and boxing history, he came up off the ground 4 times out of 3 fights, which is unheard of against Deontay Wilder. But number 2 pound for pound, I'm gonna give it to Tyson Fury. And my number 1 pound for pound, of course, you could probably deduce who that's gonna be. 1 loss, which was to Floyd Mayweather 8 years ago. But since then, he's faced the best competition. Power is getting better. Boxing ability is getting better. Has gotten better. Future Hall of Famer. Undisputed. Super middleweight champion. Held belts at 175, 168, 160, 154. I'm talking about 4 divisions, y'all. I'm talking about Saul Canelo Alvarez. So, yo, that's my top 10 pound for pound. Number 1, like I said, I want to send a special shout out to everybody who listened to the podcast. Of course, like I said before, check us out on Instagram, which is You Can't Play Boxing. Check us out on our Twitter, our Facebook, our YouTube. Man, we everywhere. Website. So check us out, those places. And we're going to be back, y'all. We got a big fight, of course, coming up in 2 weeks, which is going to be Shawn Porter versus Terence Crawford. I'm still debating whether or not I'm going to actually make that trip out to Vegas for that fight. It's right before Thanksgiving, so I'm debating on that one. But we're going to have a podcast for sure. So until next time, y'all, appreciate everybody listening. See y'all in a couple weeks. Peace.